Most of us know that dismissive avoidants really don't like conflict. So I've got my partner Matt here again as a follow-up on the previous video where we discussed some of the most frequently asked questions about dismissive avoidance. So thank you so much for being here. I know this is not your comfort zone. Thank you guys for all the love that we received in the comments. So let's straight away get into it. And if you just tell me your relationship to conflict, what do you see conflict as? Is it safe? Like if I have a different opinion to yours, what would you do? Say for example, we're going out to dinner and I want to go to an Indian restaurant and you want to go and eat Thai. Would you see that as conflict?
Potential conflict.
And what would you do in that situation?
Probably people please.
And that's so interesting because a lot of us don't realize how dismissive avoidants appease their partner just to avoid conflict. A lot of us anxious types or fearful avoidants tend to think that we are the one only people pleasing. Meanwhile, the dismissive avoidant attachment style individuals also appease. Because I've noticed that it's really difficult for you to verbalize your needs. And I remember at the beginning of our relationship, I played this game with you and I said, okay, you would ask me, what do I want to eat? And I said, okay, well, what do you want to eat? I don't know what I want to eat. And then we would have this back and forth until you finally decided what you want to eat. I mean, this is like a small thing, but that is just a demonstration of how dismissive avoidants really struggle to voice their needs.
Absolutely, yes.
How do you feel about voicing your needs? What makes it so scary?
Well, I think this is where becoming dismissive avoidant comes from, in my opinion. It's when you were younger and you did have needs and you expressed those needs, whether as a baby that was crying or as a child that was probably crying or being naggy, quote unquote naggy towards their parents, then a parent may respond in a way that was quite aggressive, and that then becomes a strategy of, well, having needs feels dangerous, it creates conflict, so I will just suppress these needs and emotions and then I will be safe.
Yeah, I think you're speaking to a lot of people. I think there are two very important paths to that, because some people look back on their past as dismissive avoidance and they don't see any conflict and they just see everything as being very sweet and very calm, where there was no hostility. And in those cases, those people just got neglect, which is this silent trauma that you can't spot. So a lot of people don't know that there is something wrong, because looking back, their parents were not hostile, they were not aggressive, they were simply just absent. Maybe absent because they had to work a lot, or they were absent because they were emotionally absent, they didn't know how to process emotions, and they would just brush off emotions. Or perhaps they learned from a book at that time that in order for your baby to stop crying, you have to just leave it in the room for a prolonged period of time until it learns not to cry. And that can cause a dismissive avoidant attachment style if practiced regularly, and also hostility towards a child. Hostility can be some snarky remark, like, oh, just grow up, or, it's not that bad. Just blazing over a need that a child might have or a young adult might have, or if this happened in infancy, maybe the parents didn't make sure to take care of the baby's needs immediately. Maybe they left the child crying for prolonged periods of time and the child learned, there is this neglect. When I cry, nothing happens. It doesn't feel good. And therefore, now when you want to ask for needs, you have this negative association to it, right? Like, what do you think is going to happen if you voice your need?
It just feels like potential conflict and emotional volatility. Potential emotional volatility. So it's scary. It's scary to do that for us, or for me. Yeah, I think it's even beyond that, to a point where as a youngster you find this strategy of suppressing your needs and emotions, which then you reach a point where you're not even actually in tune with your own needs and emotions anymore. So it's even more difficult to express those needs because you're not even aware of them. You're not even conscious of being allowed to have them, if I can put it that way. It's like a layer below what's accessible.
100%. I can relate to that as well, because before I started doing work on myself, I didn't even know I had emotional needs. I didn't know we were allowed to have emotional needs, and I didn't know how to fulfill them. So I can understand that with the dismissive avoidant attachment style, I can imagine that you have to suppress a lot of your emotions and then suppress your needs so that you could just appease the environment. And that's why a lot of people who are dismissive avoidants, I find them to be quite kind of easygoing, so to say, right? And just going with the flow, whatever happens, happens. And they don't really want to set plans with you and just let's just leave it at that go with the flow attitude. So what do you do? Are you not aware of your emotions? How does it work?
Well, as a recovering avoidant, I'm becoming more aware of my emotions, but I think a lot of the time, if they weren't out like big emotions I was feeling, if they were more subtle, I mean, like we say that emotions start as a whisper and turn into a scream. I would only hear the screams. I wouldn't hear the whispers. I wouldn't take note of the whispers. I wouldn't listen for the whispers. It was just waiting for big emotions, and then we could deal with those when they come. But listening to the little emotions is not really a thing I was accustomed to.
Yeah, and I think this is exactly what happens in relationship as well, because how we treat ourselves internally is how we treat our partners. So a lot of the time, dismissive avoidants will not hear their partner's needs or will dismiss their needs because they're so used to dismissing their own needs. They're used to their needs being dismissed by their caregivers or their parents. So they just grow up like this. So now it is a habit. So with their partner, it becomes the same thing. And this is where I love that shadow aspect of relationships, because dismissive avoidants hate conflict, but often they don't address the needs of their partner as they come up in those small whispers, and then it becomes this loud scream, and sometimes it is screams literally in the relationship as the anxious partner or the fearful avoidant, and even sometimes the secure partner is so frustrated that perhaps they even verbalize their needs to the dismissive avoidant, but the needs are still not getting met. And that is just a physical manifestation of the inner world of the dismissive avoidant. And this is so important to understand, that this is not something that is purposeful, or it is not intentional and personal, that the dismissive avoidant doesn't want to fulfill the person's need. However, they sometimes can't, because it's like a muscle. That muscle hasn't been built up, and therefore you don't have the awareness, right? I know you went through like this. We started working with nonviolent communication, and of course the attachment work that I was doing and the coaching. And can you just tell me a little bit about like how you started to become more aware of your emotions? What did you do? How you became more aware of your needs, and then from there your boundaries and conflict. What works for you in conflict? Wow, that's a lot, but let's start.
I think, I mean, it's almost embarrassing to say, but it was literally a point of having a piece of paper with a list of feelings and going through, do I feel this? No. Do I feel this? Maybe. Do I feel this? Yes, I do feel this. Going through that list, and then taking that feeling over to the needs list and going through the needs list. Do I need this? Do I need this? Do I need this? Yes, I do need this. And then speaking that out, or if I felt I just needed to fulfill that need myself, then learn to fulfill that need. It was just a matter of learning literally the vocabulary of feelings and needs, and then from there kind of progressing down the road. And I think one thing we didn't chat about, the issue with conflict, and it was a big one for us, is empathy. And it's because I'm not in tune with my own emotions, how can I be in tune with your emotions? How can I empathize with you when I don't even feel my own emotions? And it became a big sticky point for us, where you would really need me to empathize with you, and it would just feel like this language. You're like saying, I need you to speak Chinese to me right now. It's just something I couldn't fathom. I couldn't understand. So it becomes very difficult to navigate conflict for us, because we just don't have the tools or the language to do so.
Yeah, so you feel disempowered in that conflict, and I can also imagine that if you cannot empathize with somebody else and see the situation from their point of view, you could take it quite personally, because everything they're saying is not really about them and their life experience and their needs. Everything they're saying becomes personal about you, and then it becomes hurtful, critical. You imagine it to be hurtful or critical, and then that makes you then shut down. Is that the correct order of things? Okay.
It just pushes on our core wounds of not enough. Something's wrong with me. And then abandonment is coming shortly after that. Yeah.
Well, and so many of these things that you're talking about now, of course, can only be spoken about once you have been doing the work. And before we met 6 years ago, you didn't know this was going on underneath the surface. You were just going about your life, and some relationships were working out, some of them not so much, and you just thought that this is the way it is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is the pity that I see a lot of dismissive avoidants who come to me. Often they don't think they can change. They think that intrinsically there is something so wrong with them. They are so defective that they are just broken beyond repair. And to the external world, nobody sees that, because they seem so well composed, and nobody sees that pain, and they don't even share that pain, because there is so much, I call it like silent shame. It's like sitting in the shame bath, because I remember we speaking about shame, and you were like, I don't think I have shame. And then over time, as you begin to see, like, okay, why is it that I don't actually speak about my vulnerable feelings or tell you what I need? Then you started to realize, like, oh, there is actually shame. That was something that was also not in your awareness.
Yeah. I felt shameful for having needs and emotions.
And it's so interesting, because fearful avoidance and anxious preoccupied individuals have the same thing. We are also just so ashamed of having needs and emotions, especially the heavier feeling emotions, the uncomfortable emotions and needs, and needing things from other people. The society nowadays would want us to believe that we should be these completely independent people, that we don't need anything from the external world. And some spiritual practice might even propagate this as well, which is problematic. It is entrenching that dismissive avoidant attachment style, and is moving people more to be avoidant of themselves and of others. And it's so beautiful that you're doing this work, and thank you so much for doing this work, because it's not easy.
No, it's not.
Yeah, thank you. So what do you think is a way around conflict? Okay, so thinking about us, maybe not at this stage, because at this stage you've done quite a lot of work. We've done, lots of courses together. You've done nonviolent communication by yourself. I've done nonviolent communication. So we have a lot of tools, but what can you say to people watching this? What advice would you give about conflict resolution with their dismissive avoidant who might not be as far on the path as you are? Patience.
Patience, yeah, I'm sorry to say, but it requires a whole lot of patience. You have to treat us like a puppy, basically. If you become too hard at us, we're going to shut down, and it's going to get nowhere. It's going to make the situation worse. It's going to...
So soft opening, when we talk about soft opening, is saying something like, hey, you know what? There's something that I would like to share with you about me, right? Something like that will help a dismissive understand that I'm sharing about myself and not necessarily criticizing them or pointing out something that is wrong.
Yeah, you just have to be super hyper aware that a lot of what you say will feel like criticism.
A lot of it, yeah. Even things like, oh, I need to chat, will just already create that tension.
Yeah, it's just, that'll be like, oh, what have I done now? That
Yeah.
would be the initial response.
So would you say, like, if I would say to you, I just want to share something about myself, about my experience, is that better?
Yeah, I want to share something I'm going through at the moment. I think
Okay.
would be very opening. It's an invitation to us, like, oh, she needs me, you know. As a part of you doing this, then it's like, oh.
So using my experience and my I statements, also talking about my experience or something I am going through. Okay, what else?
I mean, I don't want to go too much into the non-violent communication model, but basically that whole sense of when this happens, this is how I feel, and this is what I need.
So really connecting to, this is my emotion, this is how I'm feeling in this moment, this is the need that I'm experiencing, how can we collaborate on it, or how can we
help me with
can you
this?
can you help me with this?
Yeah, because then it's a collaboration. But yeah, it's just really about super sensitive to understanding that a lot of what you're going to say is going to feel like criticism, and criticism just digs into our wound of I'm not enough, I'm defective, I'm going to be abandoned for that. So navigate like
Very gently.
very, very gently, yeah.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people watching this might think, you know what, the minute I just say the word need, my partner shuts down. And I remember when I was in a relationship, when I was much younger, you know, as a fearful avoidant, we sometimes get polarized. So I would be more dismissive with an anxious person. And sometimes I would feel like this person needed so much from me that I would literally shut down. You know, it would feel overwhelming to me. So what would you say, instead of saying, I need this, how can we invite our partner to collaborate with us without maybe triggering that response of shutdown, overwhelm?
It's a good question. I mean, we'll go back to the needs list. I think that helps. It really helps. But I think your dismissive avoidant partner wants to be there for you. They want to help. That's inherently, I mean, that's who I am. I always want to be there. As people pleasers, we want to make you feel good. We want to help you because from a selfish point of view, that means love for us. But it's also inherently who we are. We care. We care a lot. We're very sensitive. And so we do want to help fulfill those needs, but we don't want to be made to feel bad about those needs.
Or maybe pressured or
Yeah.
something like that. So would you say that having an actionable plan of, you know what, I would really like support, and that looks like you doing the laundry in the morning, would that be like something, you know, that is very specific, it's doable, it's actionable, would that work? And that doesn't feel
Absolutely.
overwhelming.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like, I can do this task.
Yeah, it becomes something that is very clean and clear. Like, okay, I can fulfill this person's need by doing the dishes before we go to bed.
Okay. It's never about the dishes. When you're fighting about the dishes, it's never about the dishes. All right, so start softly. Talk about your experience, what you are going through, and then speak about...
Sorry to interrupt, but you could also just pre-qualify it by saying, this is not criticism to you. This is my experience.
Yes.
That can go a long way too. Just flat out saying it.
This works for some people. So I think you have to really try certain things with your partner. I always say, have a conversation about how to have a conversation. So if your partner is open to doing that and saying like, hey, you know what, I see that we run into conflict. how can we problem solve that? Because we are going to run into conflict. It is just life, you know. In yourself, in ourselves, we are often conflicted. Should I go to gym? Should I stay in bed? Should I eat the cookie? Or should I have the six-pack abs? We're always going through some kind of conflict within ourselves. So of course we're going to have conflict in relationship, but it's in how we solve that conflict. So having a conversation with your partner about what is it that you need from me during conflict, and hopefully they will be able to have a constructive conversation with you. But soft starts really help a lot. Saying something, you know what, this is what I'm going through. I don't mean to criticize you. I just want to share with you what is going on for me, and perhaps collaborate on a solution so that we can both be happy in this connection. What I've noticed is that I'm very busy at work, and when I come home, I see that the dishes are not done, and that feels very overwhelming to me. And I know this is not what you think, but I feel uncared for. So I really need support. Are you able to do the dishes before I get home? Okay, and then the person can then say yes, no, and then you can negotiate, because it goes both ways. Because the person goes like, you know what, it doesn't work for me to do the dishes straight away when I get home. I can do the dishes before we go to bed, or I can do the dishes the next morning, and that's fine. Or I can employ a person to do the dishes, you know. But you can negotiate some of those points, so you don't have to just stop at that first. A lot of people just stop when they've communicated their needs. They don't go into negotiation. So one partner will try to appease, or the one partner will say no, and then the other partner appeases. Instead of going like, okay, how can we negotiate something that we feel like it can work for us?
No, I think your dismissive avoidant partner will, as a people-pleasing tactic, just agree to the first thing. So just ensure that they're not people-pleasing.
This is a very difficult thing, because dismissive avoidants tend to appease, and then they don't follow through, which is challenging, and I think we should make another video about this. But I think this is a very good starter for how to resolve conflict, for why dismissive avoidants hate conflict. Is just because they really don't have the skills, the tools, they don't have the bandwidth for emotions. We love people in ways that we love ourselves. We can only allow people into our world to the depths that we explore ourselves. So, you know, if the dismissive avoidant hasn't explored the depths of themselves, then of course they're going to not be able to go to the depths. If you have done a lot of work on yourself, personal development, shadow work, therapy, yoga, whatever it is. So just understanding that we are basically at different levels. Not that the dismissive avoidant person is any way lower or any worse off than everybody else. We're just at different places, and we need different things. And it is really this what is it called? The nonviolent communication was a great model. I think you really enjoyed that because it gave you that vocabulary. So as dismissive avoidants watching this, they might want to, or if you send this to your dismissive avoidant partner, you might go to my website or the cnvc.com website and get that feelings and needs list and start doing what Matt said. I did exactly the same thing as a fearful avoidant. I had to sit there and figure out, this is what I'm feeling in my body. This is the emotion. This is the need that it's trying to point me towards. And then I had to figure out, how do I fulfill this by myself? How do I fulfill this with a partner? Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I hope this served. Let me know down below if you have any questions, or if you have any particular challenges in your relationship that you would like us to discuss, or you would like me to discuss. Thank you so much for watching and subscribing and being here and sharing these videos. It means the world to me to have this knowledge get spread through the world, because I think this is going to really change things, not only for us individuals, but on the global collective. And I hope that you can have a life of love, safety, and freedom. And I'm actually sure of it. Thank you for being here. Big love.